We are born free.
And we will die free.
The time in between, though,
That's complicated.
in that time, governments, institutions, and our egos will limit our ability to find true freedom in this life. These are real stories of real people overcoming the odds, persevering in justice, and unlocking their potential. Welcome to Finding Freedom. Here's your host, John Odermatt.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Finding Freedom right here on the Lions of Liberty Podcast Network. And going to do a quick intro for this show because it's a good one, a long one, packed with a lot of valuable content. This is an episode, you might want to listen to a couple parts, back maybe 2 or 3 times. So I'll introduce my guest in a minute. Just one thing I do want to add and remind people is that for these interviews, I record a 15 or 20-minute bonus segment that we air for our Pride members. You can set up, if you join through Patreon, you can set up a feed, our bonus feed, and it'll come to your listening device, your phone, just like any other podcast would. So very convenient. You can join the Pride through Patreon, Lions of Liberty, slash patreon.com/Lions of Liberty. I can't believe I'm forgetting the name of our sites. Or you can join at Locals, lionsofliberty.locals.com. Let me double check that one since I'm not thinking clearly right now. Yes, lionsofliberty.locals.com. And of course, there's all kinds of other perks and bonuses depending on what level you join at. But for as little as $5 a month, less than a cup of coffee, you can get all this great bonus content. On top of my bonus interviews that I air, Brian does a daily during the week segment. You're talking about news items, talking about current events, of course, wrapping it in a little bit of comedy. So if that's not worth $5 a month to get that bonus content, then I don't know what is. I don't know what is. We bring this show to you for free because we love you. So show a little love back. Would you show a little love back? No, seriously, just appreciate you listening. Please share the show, tell your friends, and let's get to it. Okay, we are live to the Lions of Liberty Pride. I'm joined here today by John McCoy. John is a freelance blogger, and he became a freelance blogger sort of out of necessity. We'll get into his story. But he saw, the writing on the wall of things that were to come with the vaccine mandates, the jab mandates. And he was able to create significant income and really change his entire situation. So really cool story, something that I think is a conversation that, it's not one of those things like, oh, just get inspired and motivated, but let's learn how he did it. And I think we can all take something away from it. So, John, welcome to Finding Freedom.
Hey, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great to have you here, man. Let's start out first so my audience learns a little bit about you. Just tell us a little bit about your background. Where'd you grow up? Kind of some relevant facts about you and who is John McCoy?
Sure. So I grew up in eastern Kansas, right outside the state capital, Topeka, and I grew up here. I've lived here for my whole life, except for about 4 years. I was stationed in Abilene, Texas, in the Air Force, enlisted right after 9/11. Kind of, well, I know I'm safe with your audience. I believe I voted for Bush and thought it was the right thing to do. So
did I in that election. So
yeah, that was brutal, man, brutal. But I was like, I don't know, whatever I was, 18 or 19 when I enlisted. I didn't know anything. So I enlisted. I did 4 years there, and then I got out and joined the Air National Guard, and I ended up spending about 9.5 years in the Air Guard. I was a jet mechanic, and then I kind of moved to the administrative side of the house when I was farther along in my career. And then I ended up working for the Department of the Army at Fort Leavenworth, so where the prison is, for about 7.5 years. My whole career was in aviation. So the necessity that you're talking about, I had a long-term red pill moment of trying to get custody of my daughter. And any of your crew that has ever been involved in the domestic court, kangaroo court, knows that it'll bleed you dry if you put up a fight, and it did.
Mhm.
And my second wife, my wife now, and I were trying to get custody of my oldest daughter. So we spent years and many thousands, tens of thousands of dollars on the process, and we did eventually get custody of her. We've had her for about, she's 18, almost 19 now. And but I mean, I think probably total expenditure was 50 to 60 grand, but not including child support, which was about 50 grand. Yeah. Oh, dude.
And this was in Kansas.
This is in Kansas, bleeding red state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it took years and years, and about that time, things just weren't working out in the Air Guard, and I was getting out, and you know, at that time I was getting about $350 a month from the one drill weekend I was there, which is highway robbery as I look back on it now. You know, like, man, I give a whole weekend for that. But at the time, man, I needed that $350 badly. And so that was in late 2015. And we just honestly did not know like what we were going to do. You know, like, I mean, we were at the point where we were getting so bled dry by this. We're like, are we going to have gas money for me to go to work this week? You know, we have to limp through till payday, you know. It was awful. And so it was about almost the exact same time, maybe 2 months after I got out of the Air Guard. Like, we're really like, we don't know what we're going to do. My ex-wife, who I've been fighting with for all these years, ended up just, you know, her life is such a train wreck. She handed over custody of my daughter. So
were you able to like even see your daughter during this time?
Yeah, but I mean, it was contentious, and this does all play into my career. It is all leading up to it. It's getting very close now. So at this point, this would have been early 2016. The roles reversed, and I was no longer paying child support, thank God. And my ex-wife was actually owed me child support, and which she's still has never really paid up on. So I was trying to track down her income. And then my wife found her by doing some snooping and found her on Upwork. And I was like, well, what's Upwork? You know? And so this is how it all started. I was trying to shake down my ex-wife for child support. And so I check out Upwork, and this was real early on when they just changed names from Odesk. And at that point they were still pretty small, like the pandemic, plandemic, scamdemic. Upwork exploded. And but I got in way earlier. So I was checking it out. I'm like, I put in aviation because my whole career had been aviation. I'm like, well, you know, we'll see if we can get a couple $100, you know? And so I put in my background and just built a little profile, and I kind of forgot about it. And then this dude was looking for an editor for a quarterly newsletter in the aviation community. And he reached out to me, and my at the time my rate was stupid low, like $10 an hour or something. You know, it was like beer money cheap. And so I was like, he reached out to me, and I had paralysis, or not I had imposter syndrome so bad. I was like, I'm not gonna take it. I don't know what I'm doing. My wife's like, what are you doing, you idiot? Just take it. You know, it's like, worst that can happen is it doesn't work out. So long story short, I started doing that, and I think I worked on that contract for about almost 2 years. And, you know, made a couple grand. You know, it wasn't a whole lot of money, but it was that proof of concept.
Did you negotiate your rate up from the original $10 that you had set?
Yeah, well, I got up to 15, but I was still way undervaluing and I still didn't see a future in it. All you know, all of this really goes to my wife, who was like, you can do this for real money. I'm like, I don't think so. So, but then that was kind of like my main thing on Upwork for a while. But then I started picking up a few other small ones. I mean, at the time they were like 20 or $30. Like, they weren't anything, but I started, you know, gaining some momentum. And then I was probably a year and a half in, but I was still working full time for the Army. And I was like, I wonder if there's any gun gigs on here. I wonder if they're, you know, too progressive, or will they actually let them? So I just researched firearms and shooting, and it popped up some stuff. And I've been a shooter for a long time, and I build ARs and, you know, redneck stuff. And so I saw this posting for writing product descriptions. It was like Ammo Seek or one of those companies, and I was like, I'll just put in for it. You know, what's the worst can happen? And sure enough, you know, I actually built my bio, and I built the cover letter well enough, and was, you know, demonstrate I actually knew something about guns and shooting. And he was like, hey, you know, I think it was like 20 minutes later, he got back to me. He was like, do you want to start? I'm like, yeah, you know. So yeah, and it really is that easy. So fast forward to, you know, we get to the Trump years, you know, and life's good. It was, you know, not so bad working for the Army. I wasn't in the Army, but I worked for them, so almost the same thing. And then, you know, 2020 happens, and, you know, we're watching this all unfold, and I'm sitting there watching this train wreck, and I'm like, this is crap. All of this is crap. Everything that we're seeing here is we're being fed a line. Now, at this point, I've been writing for about 5 years, and my wife was involved in one of those like Mary Kay type of companies. So, and she'd actually started finding some success, and she's like, you know, you're going to have to make a decision at some point, and you know, you're going to have to either give this up, or you're going to have to pursue it full time. And I'm like, I'm not ready yet. And 2020 progresses further on, and then
I'm just curious, just to dig in on that. So what was I'm curious, like what was where was her mind at saying that she thought you had to make a decision one way or the other right at that point in time, or was encouraging that?
It was just a time thing. At that point in time, we had 5 kids.
Because you were spending so much time doing the up work and also working full time, and it was just you had no time. Is that essentially it? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So my job at the Army, I ran an airport for them, and Fort Leavenworth, it's where all the high rollers in the Army come through there, and they give zero consideration for your family life, your schedule, or your anything. So, and I was manager, I managed it, and so I had to be there. And if they were like 4 hours late, like Millie was always 4 hours late, I'd be there. So I had zero predictability. I mean, they were only obligated to give me 24 hours lead time if they were going to come in. And a lot of times they didn't even do that. And so we, you know, our kids were growing up, and we have a bunch of kids, and we're like, you know, it was just stress. It was stress express. I mean, it was, we were both just getting really burnt out. And she was like, you know, you need to do this, and you should do it because I'm making money and you're stressed out all the time. And I was like, well, I can't argue that. I am. And so we're watching 2020, and then 2021 rolls around, and, you know, Biden's elected or whatever. And, and
that
he
was
ends
crazy.
up in the White House. Yeah. And we're like, that seems improbable, but all right. And so he gets installed in the White House, and you know, the first traffic working for the Army, we start getting all this email traffic and chatter like, don't worry, you know, the vaccine's been rolled out, but no one's mandating it. And I was like, okay, you know, right. I've already been red pilled from the divorce and been being around you idiots for years, you know, the military forever.
As soon as they say that, don't worry, we're not going to mandate it. Then, you know, they're definitely going to mandate it. Yeah.
Automatic. Well, so then it gets better. It gets better. This is about February, and I resigned in April. I resigned in April of 2021. About February, they start sending out these spreadsheets, and they're like, we just want to know who's gotten it. Just for our own internal records. I'm like, what? You know, you can't do that. I'm not in the military anymore. All right. So I'm not filling it out. And they're like, no, don't worry. It's not going to be mandated. You know, we're not going to do that. And I was like, right. You're not going to do that. So yeah, exactly. Oh yeah. And you know, it was like, I don't know, 2 weeks after, you know, a couple months or whatever after I resigned, they're like, oh yeah, federal employees are mandated. I was like, yeah, I saw that one coming. So that's how it kind of, we knew it was coming, and it wasn't like this one event, but we were just kind of like, worst that happens. The Great Resignation was in full swing. We're like, if it doesn't work out, you know, just go back to 9 to 5. And so that kind of takes me up to April 2021 when I resign. And then from there.
So let me ask you something about the lead up to that. So you resign in April 2021. You know, something that I think prevents a lot of people, especially people with kids. And I think you said you have 5 kids.
6 now, but 5 at the time.
6 kids. Congratulations. What a lot of people worry about, myself included, in a jump like that is, okay, health insurance. Like, so did you have like that lined up on what you were going to do for that situation, or just like, we'll figure it out as we go?
We have just been winging it. And the reality is that, with less, I mean, my wife and I sat down and we're like, at this point, we don't even trust anything almost anyone in the medical community says. So I think we'll just take the plunge. And if we feel down the road that we need it, then we'll get it. And instead, we've just padded our savings account. We're like, we're all very healthy, Yeah. And
you think about it, the amount of money that you pay for health insurance, especially with that many kids every month, would be, if you're able to save that money, exactly. You're
hundreds
actually,
and we never used it. And once they were, once we, shied away from child stuff and any of that stuff, that was hundreds of dollars down the drain. I never go to the doctor. I never get sick. And my kids are never sick. And we're like, well, if we have to go get a broken bone set, we'll just go to the ER and pay it out of pocket, big deal. And so but I understand where you're coming from, though, because even I was, before I quit, you get so programmed to really think, like, how can I even literally survive the day without health insurance? That's been 25 months and I haven't had a single incident that even remotely close to required that.
It's so funny you say that.
Well,
I
get it.
This is interesting for a couple of reasons. This episode, it's going to air on Monday. What is that? Whatever Memorial Day is. I don't know what the actual day is, but it's going to air Memorial Day, which this episode is going to be sponsored by Crowd Health, which is not health insurance, but it's a way to, cover yourself and your medical bills, essentially by, crowdfunding with other people. It's actually like sort of like an old school idea that this company is running with. It's really, really interesting. I don't use it myself, but I could definitely see myself using it in the future. But yeah, it's funny. It's funny for that reason that we're having this conversation, that ad's going to be inserted probably any moment now. But anyway,
nice.
back to your story.
Yeah, so I totally understand, because you really do get fully programmed. And actually, the Crowd Health type of model is one. If we were concerned, I would definitely go that route. At this point, I just don't see it being an issue, because we're not on anything, don't use any medications, and it's not an issue. But it is scary, because if you pay that out of pocket, that could be a really substantial part of your pay. You can really cut into it. So, but no, we just kind of, I knew I was going to get canned anyway, because I wasn't going to take the shot. I figured they stuck me with enough garbage while I was in the Air Force. I wasn't going to take any more. So,
it's
totally
interesting. A lot of people who were in, the armed forces have that same viewpoint. They're like, I've been experimented on enough. Like, I'm drawing a red line. I'm done. So yeah, I've heard that from many people.
I personally know 2 guys that got, they had a bad batch of anthrax vax. And it's like, these guys ran like negative 0% chance of ever getting anthrax. But instead, both of these guys are disabled to a certain extent for the rest of their life because of that shot. One of them was a pilot. He cannot fly for the airlines. He lost his physical. He can't fly at all.
Wow.
So, and he has seizures. Used to be an amateur bodybuilder. Now he has seizures and can barely pick a box up off the floor. So, I'm like, it ruined his future, and he'll get his VA claim, but that's nothing compared to what he would have been earning as a airline captain. Oh, especially over his lifetime, which is probably shortened now. So,
if you were able to sue the government over that, and come to a plea agreement, I'm sure it would be in the millions if you were able to do that, which you can't. But
exactly, it definitely would. But he's not going to. He's going to get his $2,000 a month or whatever from the VA and a thank you for your service, wave. So, there's a lot of us out there that kind of said, all right, we served our time. We did our part. So we're not taking any more. And I knew a few guys that were getting older, and they were like, when it started rolling out, they were retirement eligible, and they're like, I'm getting out of the Army. Like they were civilians around 60. I'm like, I'm just going to go. I'm just going to hang out longer, but I'm not doing this. So, I mean, I think that's kind of part of the overall purge, but that's different level.
Yeah, you're speaking to the purge of they want to get people who are nonconformists and ones who don't fall in line out of
Totally.
the armed forces, and yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely they do. So yeah, we definitely observed it happening, but yeah, it works though. You keep the ones that
mm-hmm.
are easy to conform, and then I mean, guys that are willing to take the risk like I did generally don't conform. Like I was a really terrible soldier anyway, or airman. I didn't conform, and I argue with people, and it's just
So let's kind of go through like how you built this up, because you built up a pretty significant income stream. You leave your job, you start doing this full time. Were you still using Upwork at that time? Had you expanded to other platforms, or what was your situation like there?
Yeah, so Upwork really, so Fiverr is its only real competitor, but Fiverr is a lot smaller. Upwork really, they've really cornered the market really well. I mean, there are a couple of other ones, but their UX, like their user experience, just their platforms are just really garbage comparatively. Like Upwork definitely has the market cornered. At that point, when I first started, it was exclusively Upwork. And I'll be honest, that first year was really tough because I had a couple of clients right before when I resigned, I decided to press the button right then because I had a couple of new clients come on. They're like, yeah, we're going to need a bunch of work, and I was like, well, if there's a time, this is time to do it. Well, long story short, those didn't pan out. And I was left with basically not making much of anything for, I'm going to say, about 9 months. Fortunately, because of all the COVID relief stuff, we had put our mortgage on a forbearance, and we're like, well, let's just, we'll play this out. And I'll be honest, that first, it takes about a year, I would say, for most people to get deprogrammed from the 9-to-5 mentality and embrace this lifestyle. If they ever do, it takes some time. And I was really like, no, babe, I gotta go back. I gotta go back. And fortunately,
what are some of the struggles, with like that deprogramming? Like what did you struggle with, fully embracing freelancing?
It's that lie about job security, like that it actually exists in, the corporate world. Even though I knew it didn't, for a couple of years, right after I got out of the Air Force, when I was like 23, I worked at a Target warehouse, and I saw people get canned constantly. And I was like, there's no, including bosses, I'm like, there's no security here, and they're a major company. There's no security at all. So I already knew personally there was none. Now, in the federal government, that's a little different. It's extremely hard to get rid of a federal employee. I mean, including really, really bad ones. So yeah, actually that was kind of like the worst place to try to leave, because it's so easy. And if you excel at all, like I did, I mean, you're on easy street, really, you have your programmed pay raises every 2 years or whatever. And I mean, really, I was probably working about 5 hours a week. And, yeah, typical government employee. So, but really it's just that idea of job security. Like, if I don't nail this one down, or if this just contract goes away, I mean, there goes my income. And you get, a lot of it is the scarcity mindset that you get set into, this idea that there won't be another client that pays that well, or a gig that you click with this easily, or this, that, or the other. That's really the big thing. And I didn't have a client that really started paying really well until well into 2022. And then it all started to click. Then when you started seeing really good pay come in, you start to kind of push that stuff out of your mind.
Yeah. And it builds your confidence too, right? I mean, once you get a couple of those gigs, and you start understanding that, that whole time you were worth that much, but then you actually are getting paid that, you're like, hey, well now, yes, I should be getting that. That's kind of the expectation then, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about like time management when you're working for yourself, freelancing. Was that something that came sort of naturally to you, being able to, switch from the job mentality to the freelancing mentality to be able to keep yourself on task?
It did. I was actually pretty lucky where I worked in the Army. I worked for a bunch of guys that knew nothing about aviation, and my office, the actual airport, was about 2 miles away from my headquarters building where my bosses were. So, they were always apologizing. Like, I'm just sorry, we never make it down. I'm like, oh, don't apologize. It's fine. Really, it's fine. And so I worked with a lot of autonomy while I was doing that. And actually I grew up an only child living out in the country. So it really kind of starts back when I'm a little kid. And,
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of had to organize my life on my own. And, as I progressed through my life, I was in a lot of situations where I worked with a lot of autonomy. So for me personally, it wasn't that big of a jump. Now, the flip side is though, you still always have this, I won't call it dread, but it's always in the back of your mind that if you don't deliver the goods when you say you do, they just might get rid of you. And if that
Mm-hmm.
happens to be a $6,000 a month client that gets rid of you just because you don't sign a contract, you're not an employee, you're just a guy he's sending money to on PayPal,
Right.
if you don't deliver the goods, he can just stop sending you money on PayPal. So I mean, for me, it did come fairly naturally. And I mean, that was the one good thing about being in the military is you don't have a choice. If you conform at all and make it past like the first year, you are being driven by an order that's much bigger than you. So, and that sticks with you, when you're having that driven into you when you're 19, I mean, it doesn't really leave you. So, and I talked to Mark about this on his show,
Mm-hmm.
that really was something that did help me. Like, I definitely think it gave me a leg up. But at the end of the day, though, you have to be driven. You have to be self-driven. Like, I don't really work that many hours, but I'm very consistent with the hours I work and the schedule I keep and how I do it because it works for
Mm-hmm.
me. And it's going to be different for everyone, and I mean, that is the beauty of it though. This isn't a 9 to 5. You're not clocking in, but it's also the detriment of it. You're not clocking in and you're not clocking out. And if you don't deliver as promised, you're going to be looking for another client.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So your gigs now that you're doing, are you pretty much full-time writing? Is that mostly what you do?
Yeah, that's all I'm doing. Although I'm starting to pivot because I've been talking about like search engine optimization, SEO, and it's been driving a lot of interest. And I've actually have my first guy is paying me for a consultation, which was out of the blue. And it's just, I've been talking about it on Twitter a
Mm-hmm.
lot in a very practical sense. Like, I'm not a nerd. I'm not in the, those data analytics nerds that do SEO stuff. That's not me. Which is a very practical sense of what I've seen work over long-term projects. But I've actually talked to some guys like, dude, you need to talk about that more. So I'm starting to pivot a little bit more into a consulting
Mm-hmm.
role. Writing is awesome, but it has limitations. I'll just say that because writing is very time consuming and it's very
Yeah.
intensive. You got to write the first draft and then you got to come back to it and you have to edit it. And then sometimes you're also putting it up on WordPress or you're putting it up on Squarespace. You're also doing images. You have to make sure the images aren't pirated and that you're not going to get, the company you're writing for sued because you had used a bad image.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very time consuming stuff. And, but yeah, that's my main bread and butter. So, and that kind of brings me to, and I don't want to jump the gun, but that kind of brings me up into a pricing model.
Mm-hmm.
Writing is also kind of a difficult commodity to scale because at some point in time you're going to peak. Like, and I have a couple of clients that pay ridiculous amounts of money for what I do, but I also understand that at some point you're going to peak that, and you cannot. I mean, I've run in a couple of people that write ungodly amounts. I don't know how they do it, but I mean, most people that I know cannot write more than 1,000 to 2,000 words a day and make it be legible. So
Yeah.
there's only a finite amount of writing that you can accomplish in a month and have a good product. And if your product isn't good, if it looks like it was written by Chat GPT, you're going to be looking for work, or you're getting paid 5 cents a word, you know?
Right. Well, that was actually going to be my next question. What's your view of AI in writing, and is it something that you come across a lot, like maybe looking at competitors or things like that?
Oh yeah. You can definitely figure out which ones. Just plug a prompt in the chat GPT and
Mhm.
slap it straight onto a website, because it's absolute hot garbage. But I use it a lot. Actually, the AI service I like the best is with Notion. They added it about a month ago, and I have
What's it
paid
called?
Notion. Notion?
Notion? I haven't heard of that. Okay.
Oh
I have
man,
to check it out.
Notion, it's all the rage.
Okay.
It's like, okay, you ever use Trello?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so it's kind of like Trello mixed with everything else. It does everything. You can, seriously, you can sync it with everything, and you can also do
Can it
drafts.
edit podcasts?
You know what? It honestly wouldn't surprise me if it could, but I
Yeah.
don't know. Okay, so I use Notion as basically I use it to track everything, and
Mhm.
like I'd use Trello, but they added an AI feature that I like the best. And so what I use it for, especially if it's a topic that I'm writing on that isn't yielding very good Google results, I'll just ask the question in there, and as long as it checks out, like that the information isn't wildly off, I will oftentimes use that to create bullet points. I'll never use it to copy and paste it, because it reads like a machine wrote it. But
Yeah, you're using it to kind of brainstorm,
oh yeah,
essentially, a little bit.
it
Yeah.
really is great. It's really great for that.
Yeah.
But as far as a raw product, it's not going to replace anyone anytime soon. It's just, I
Yeah.
mean, except for the really bad ones, it'll replace them.
Like the AP and Newswire probably already has
Yeah.
replaced.
Yeah, that's probably where they're getting their info.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. So you were talking about scaling and it being difficult to scale writing, and I do kind of
Mhm.
want to. I was going to move on to next part, but I want to come. I did want to settle on the writing for a minute.
Mhm.
I'm curious, just with like things like writer's block, especially when you're dealing with writing on a deadline for a client.
Mhm.
You're under a contract or whatever for for a certain amount of time when you have deliverables. Have you run
Yeah.
into writer's block and things like that? And like, what are some of your secrets or hacks to work through that?
Right. Every single day. That's your hack.
Yeah.
There are no hacks. Uh, really. Okay. So what I do, it's not a hack, but what you have to do. And so I do long form blog posts. So this isn't like the blogs of the early 2000s where, they're doing affiliate links for Roomba vacuums or something like that. What I'm
Mhm.
actually writing for are usually like service industry companies, like very boring, like aviation parts and aviation maintenance service companies that are absolutely flush with cash. So what we're doing
Mm.
is I'm writing long form posts, usually 1,000, even sometimes 2,000 words long. And then what we use those is every time you add a page, like a blog post, it's another page on your web page. So
Mm.
every blog post is a new page. So Google is watching these, and Bing, but really it's just Google. They're watching these and they're indexing them. So the more pages you have, the better your website is. The more material you have, Google starts to look at it, because size really matters, and freshness of content matters, how often you're putting out, how much of it. And then what we're also doing is we're looking for quality backlinks. So I'm going to backlink either to services that we provide or to other articles I want to drive people to. And then we have outbound backlinks too for like companies that we're friendly with, and Google looks at that and they see credibility. Or if it's like a .gov website, those are credible backlinks as well. So what we're really doing is not so much creating a blog; they just would be considered blog posts. But what we're really
Mhm.
doing is creating lead magnets, inbound lead magnets, is what we're
Yeah.
writing. And so what we do to do that is we start targeting keywords. So we do some SEO research and we figure out what we need to target and what we are targeting, and we start to use those in there, but in a way that is very natural. And because, I mean, Google's unbelievably powerful. You know, I mean, I'm sure you know that.
Yes.
But I mean, it's beyond comprehension, really, how powerful of a service it is, because it'll even is able to determine basically, you know, if you're just doing keyword soup, like it's a trash article. And you see these a lot that, you know, not personal, it's not trying to be racist, but they outsource them to people in Pakistan and India for nothing, you know, 1 cent a word or less. And they just cram keywords in there, and it, you know, you'll run in those articles. So it used to be that when it was purely like keyword driven, those articles would sit at the top of the first page on Google. Well, as the algorithm improved, it started noticing these were junk articles, and it would give them the boot. You know, they'd drop down in the rankings. So that's why Chat GPT is not going to replace good writers, because it'll sense those things too. You have to actually be good and be able to work the words in there, have it flow. Because there's another component that matters big time for Google rankings, SEO rankings, and that's dwell time. So Google looks at how long people are reading your article. So if you have 1,000 people get driven to your website, but they all stick around for 10 seconds, you're not going to rank well, because it means it's a trash article that has nothing beneficial or useful in it. So you know, when some websites, you'll go there and they'll say like estimated 10-minute read time or whatever, you know, and that's kind of what Google's gonna be looking at. Did it take 10 minutes, or was the person there for at least 5 or 6 minutes? And if you have people actually dwelling on your articles, then it's actually going to improve your rankings. So we have a lot of different factors that we're trying to work into this. So this is why when people ask, is AI going to replace our jobs? I'm like, no, at least not right now. There's too much involved. Yeah. There's too much knowledge involved.
The algorithm is too smart for AI. So the AI is outsmarting the AI. Does that make sense? I don't know.
Oh man, it's like Spider-Man pointing at Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly. Crazy world we live in.
Dude, for real.
Okay, so you were talking about scaling and kind of slowly starting to shift into consulting around SEO and maybe some other things too. Is that kind of where you see yourself going in the future? Like when you look 5 years from now, do you see yourself doing more of that than writing? Or like, what would you rather do? Like, would you rather write, or would you rather consult?
It's going to be some of each. I'm sure I'll never get away from writing completely, because if you do, I mean, especially as quickly as things change, if you got away from it, I mean, anything you have to offer, like when I'm talking to you right now, is going to be way outdated information. So, I mean, just to stay, you know, with my finger on the pulse of the industry, I'll always be writing. And I anticipate with where I'm at in the game now, I mean, really everything I've really learned, that first 5 years or so of doing it part-time, I didn't learn anything. Everything has just been really in just 2 years. And that's the crazy thing. Like I've been doing this for 7 years, but really I tell people only 2 years of it matters. And that's how quickly you learn and you adapt. So 5 years from now, I mean, I couldn't even begin to tell you where I'll be. But there's a lot of different models out there. I had been kind of tepidly looking towards running an agency, but then I started realizing that sounded really miserable, trying to chase around, you know, other qualified writers to do the writing for me. So I know a lot of guys have made a lot of money doing that, but I'm like, yeah, money's not everything. I make good money now, and I'm very, very relaxed. I don't really work past noon ever. So I would hate to give that up. So I have a very, very comfortable baseline that I'm earning now. And I'm like, well, whatever I end up doing, it's going to be something that works with my lifestyle. Because really, at the end of the day, that is really what I'm doing this for. It's for a better lifestyle. It's for a better livelihood, you know?
Yeah.
I don't want to live to work. You know, I have zero interest in that at all. So, but I would say to answer your question,
I was going to say, I'm sure you get to spend a lot more time with your kids now than you did previously when you were working the 9 to 5.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because a lot of times it was like the 9 to 9, and
Hmm.
yeah, and most of my kids don't really even remember it anymore.
Hmm.
So they're they come complaining that it's like 12:30, it's noon 30. And like, Dad, you're still working. I'm like, yeah, so um so but which is awesome though. Like they don't know any different.
Yeah.
Like we're we homeschool our kids, so like it is so awesome. And I mean, I wish everyone could experience this that has kids. Um that likes to spend time around their kids anyway.
Hmm.
Because I mean, once you have a taste of it, you never go back. That's when you realize. I realized a while ago, this isn't about my career. This is about what I'm able to offer my kids and a legacy of showing them that they can do something different. They don't have to do what I did. And they don't have to
Yeah.
get stuck in a soul sucking job that they hate. You know.
Yeah, in my current job, I work full time remote. So I mean, I work in my house. So
Yeah.
I walk my daughter to the bus to go to school, and I'm here when she gets home after. And my wife, similar to your wife, she does network marketing, so she's at home
Hmm.
too. And I like I've been doing this full time remote since I guess I started full. It was last January, so a little bit over a year, or I guess it's almost coming
Hmm.
up on a year and a half. But like, yeah, there's no way I will ever go back into an office. Like the only thing I will do is go further in the other, in the direction I'm going in, and get, maybe more towards freelance or consulting. Um, it's just, it's crazy to even think about going back into an office now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, so back what we were talking about earlier, the kind of that deprogramming, it stuck with me for a long time. Like, well, how? Because I explored those. I'm like, well, maybe I could just full
Hmm.
time job, but I would be, at home. And
Hmm.
I'm not even wired for that. Like, I'm not wired for having
Yeah.
a boss. So, and I didn't really realize it till I didn't have one for a while. And I was like, I can't work for an idiot again. I can't do that, you know,
Yeah.
because if I end up working out with someone that just I absolutely cannot stand, I'm like, well, we'll just part ways, and wish him the best. No harm, no foul.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, and I'll go off on a real short tangent. That's the biggest
No, go
fallacy
for it.
of
Tangent away. Yeah.
that is the biggest fallacy of the 9 to 5 job security. Because what happens to you, John, when you get canned from your job? What do you lose?
Hmm.
From your 9 to 5 job? You lose everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You lose that whole
Like,
chunk of
yeah,
income.
I
Yeah.
mean, you lose your. I mean, say you're not working, you're a normie in your man cave, watching the
Hmm.
Giants or whatever, and you have never built on a side hustle or done anything else,
Hmm.
and out of the blue, the factory cans you, and because you didn't take the vax or whatever,
Yeah.
you lost everything, you know? And
Hmm.
if I lose one client, I have 3 other clients, and I'll take a dip for a while, and I'll bust out my little black book and start emailing other companies that are compatible with the one that just ditched me. And
Yeah.
probably within 2 or 3 weeks, I'll be doing the same thing again. And so,
Yeah. Diversification. You're not
yeah,
working for just one company. You're working with in a mutual consensual agreement. You're working with multiple people or companies.
exactly. Yeah. So if you have 4 clients, to just very simple math, each one paying you 2,500 a month, that's 10,000 a month. Very, very
Hmm.
respectable. If you lose one, you're at 7,500 a month, and you're still paying for your mortgage just fine. But if
Hmm.
you're making 8,000 a month from one job and you lose that job, you lose all of your income. So to me, I'm
Yeah.
like, well, that's far less secure than what I'm doing.
Hmm. No, that's a great point. We're going to get to the bonus show here in just a minute, but before we do that, I want to ask you one more question. So,
Mhm.
is there anything that I did not ask you, that I was remiss to ask you, that you really wanted to talk about today, that you had a really passionate point about, or is there just something that you want to double down on, to make the point again, for the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say kind of parrot what Jason Stapleton talks about. We can talk about liberty all we want, but it's got to start with your income. All right.
Hmm.
So everyone in your audience needs to do something to create another income stream.
Yep.
You all have to do it. It's not me. I am nothing special. I am an argumentative former knuckle dragger from the Air Force. You know, and if I can do this, and I will just be very honest, I'm pushing double and a half my salary that I left from the Army, and I was very well paid. Yeah, it's insane what you can do. If I can do that, anyone can do it, and everyone needs to do it. All right, because at some point in time, we saw in 2021, 2022, and 2020, your convictions are going to get tested at some point, especially if you work for a major corporation. You're going to get tested. All right. And you can either be forced to stand up for your convictions and possibly walk, or sit there long enough that, you know, in a standoff and wait for the first person to blink, or they're just going to fire you. So everyone needs to get started. And, you know, the best time to start it was 7 years ago, like I did. The second best time is right now.
I could not agree.
That's my biggest point
with that. Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. And I can't stand when, you know, people hear something like that and they say, well, I'm just not an entrepreneur, or, well, I'm just not, you know, somebody who, you know, wants to, you know, sell myself like that. And it's like, well, yeah, you are, because you're selling yourself to your job every single day. So yes, you are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Totally. Well,
yeah,
I was the least entrepreneurial person I knew, but I did it anyway. And you get good at whatever you force yourself to be accustomed to. If you get accustomed to doing this, that's what you get good at, you know. But it really is far less of a big deal than people play out to be in their mind. It's not. Entrepreneurship is all about pivoting and learning things as you go. No one is endowed with all this information right off the bat. Nobody is. So, which you have to stop looking at the long game and just do something. Set up an Upwork profile, build a website, you know, get on LinkedIn Learning, which is free from most of your libraries, and learn a new skill. Just do something. You know,
take that first step. So many people think they want to plan out everything, and we have to have a whole plan before you do anything. Yeah.
No, you don't. You just need to do. You just need to get your butt out there and just do something. You know, and the rest of it comes with time. It really does. You know, it's cliched jargon, but it really does come.
All right. Well, we're going to go to the bonus show in a minute here. Before we do that, I want you to give your links, your Twitter, any other socials, or Linktree, but whatever else you want to have people link up to.
Right on. So I keep it very simple. It's at John McCoy Writes. And if you go, Twitter is where I'm most active. Follow me there. And then I have a Linktree link on there. So everything is linked from there. But Twitter is where I'm at most of the time. So at John McCoy Writes.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on the show, John McCoy. And we'll talk to you soon, but we'll talk to you right now in the bonus segment.
Yes. All right.
Hopefully you enjoyed that episode with John McCoy. And, you know, I told you at the top of the show, there's a bonus segment. I will tell you this, in the bonus segment, we dig in a lot deeper into some, you know, tactics that John has used in his business, some SEO, you know, tactics and tools, different things like that. If you want to get into this field, you know, really good content to listen to, but also just in general, you know, we talk about the importance of creating another stream of income and having that flexibility, that protection, because as you and I both know, this world is very unstable, and just having one stream of income, or maybe two streams of income, if you and your spouse have a stream of income, it's very, very risky. In today's day and age, that is, I mean, I don't know if you can be more risky than that. People talk about diversifying investments, and of course, that makes sense, right? You don't want to invest all your money in crypto, or invest all your money in real estate, or invest all your money in the stock market. No, you want to diversify your investments. So why on earth wouldn't you want to diversify your income, especially in this historically strange and most likely crashing very soon economy? Protect yourself, protect your family, and create another stream of income. Thank you for listening to today's show. Hopefully you got as much value out of it as I did. This is a show that I will definitely be listening back to. So as always, you can reach out, give me feedback, or recommend other guests for me to reach out to that you'd like to hear me have a conversation with. You can email me, john@lionsofliberty.com. You can find me on Twitter @JohnOdermatt, on Instagram @JohnOdermatt. And I always appreciate the feedback. So we'll talk to you next week. Always remember to keep your head up and the fires of liberty burning.